Hello and welcome to Grief During the Holidays. I'm Glenda Miles with Mindful Healing Space. One of the reasons why I put together this package is because I know how challenging the holidays can be for so many people, especially in the beginning stages of our grief or loss of a loved one. I recall back several years ago after the death of both of my parents within a year, and the first Christmas after my mother had passed, we didn't celebrate. We kind of just bypassed, if you will, the whole holiday season, which was fortunate enough at the time. I was living in Toronto, and many of my friends didn't celebrate Christmas for whatever reason, for religious reasons or family dynamics and whatnot. And so we would gather together and go for a movie and then for dim sum and have a sense of community that was so important at that time of year, but was different than the traditions of my own family that I had grown up with, that I didn't feel that I had the capacity to be with. And it took me actually several years before I could start to kind of come back into actually enjoying some of those traditions and being around family again in a different way. And so working not only with my own experience, but then for the last 6 years of working with people who are dying and their families to help them navigate life after the immense loss of a loved one, I've learned a few things along the way, and I wanted to share it with you. In this part of the package, I wanted to highlight a couple of things that you may want to consider, if you will, for whether this is your first holiday without your loved one or your 10th, really, or perhaps the person hasn't even died yet but is terminal and you're moving through the grieving process nonetheless, or you're supporting someone else who is grieving. Here are some things to consider, to sit with, to be with, to practice. Of course, all of this is simply an invitation. You can pick or choose that which resonates with you and leave the rest. And that's okay, because very much the theme of this all is to release all the expectations that you may have of both yourself and others around you. Release them, at least for right now, because in the expectation creates more suffering. It's the things that we say like, well, I should, and the pressure that then comes upon us because of the expectations that we hold and that we try to meet, even though they may not be true. So in letting them go, we all of a sudden give ourselves permission, freedom, and in it we can find some peace, or at least peace of mind, perhaps. So I'm going to go through 5 things that I want you to consider. And then I'm going to guide you through a practice, a simple practice that you can then even consider moving in and through as the time and the days move forward here. So we're in December of 2021, but these practices, interestingly, aren't just for the Christmas holidays, but can actually be used all of the time as we're dealing with our grief, but in particular around anniversary dates, death dates, birthdays, these kind of things that tend to bring up, if you will, our grief once again, to the point where, as I wrote in the ebook, we often feel like we're almost right back to the beginning again, where we had the intensity of the feelings and the grief. So let's begin by what most people, at least that I've sat with that were dying, we would talk about many of the fears that were presented to them, and certainly not being in pain was one, But medical society is as it is, or our medical system is as it is, that we can really manage people's pain. What they actually mean is the suffering that they may have in letting go. This idea of the mystery, the great mystery of the beyond, what does that mean? And often when it comes down to it is, they want to be remembered. And so we honor those who we have loved and who have been so important to us by remembering them. And so if there's any kind of general theme to this, it is that. And the second part of that is in honoring your own individual needs as you move through this. So kind of how do you create a space this year and beyond where we both remember our loved ones and honor our own needs? And that may be a challenge or a conflict at times, but if we keep both of those things in mind, something beautiful and new can be created. I often talk about grief in context of gratitude, and that very much is a theme that I included in the ebook that you can review and kind of consider, and certainly the movement towards, depending on where you are in your own journey, of finding some sense of gratitude for life, right? For the preciousness of life, for developing a different relationship perhaps to our own life and the relationships around us. I was recently listening to a conversation, if you will, on friendship by David Whyte. And he had this beautiful way of talking about his friendship with John O'Donohue, who's both of which, by the way, are amazing poets and Irish poets. I'm gonna grab something here, but he talks about the conversation of friendship and how there's an opportunity to create legacy. And this beautiful word of legacy, of the passing down the conversations that can be created, but that can continue on, right? When we create legacy, we allow for the expansion of it, which is very much, again, part of creating new traditions or passing down these traditions, which is very much about legacy. And so as it relates to our family traditions, especially around the holidays, this can be an important component, but can actually be part of what he refers to as a deathless conversation, right? The continuation of life, because the opposite of death is not life. The opposite is birth, and life exists before, during, and after each. Life continues even after death, after our own death, after the death of our loved ones. And that can be and is often the case where the conflict comes in internally for us, that we don't want to continue on after the death. And yet we are forced to do so, if you will, by the linear function of time and life itself. And it can be both a comfort and a discomfort to be moving through those. And that's part of the journey of grief, is to move into the acceptance that life continues and that we are a part of that life. So let's come back to some of the key lessons that I want you to think about, ponder, and again, all an invitation. The first one is to release our expectations. I mentioned this a moment ago. Not only the expectations that we have of ourselves around the holidays, but others as well. Everyone is going to grieve the loss of a person in a different way. It doesn't even matter whether it's, for instance, two siblings who have lost a parent, or what the relationship will be. All of our relationships to other are unique to who we are and the other person. And therefore, how we grieve them will feel different, and how we grieve them, we will behave differently as well. We will express that grief in different ways. And so allow people their own process. Allow everyone in your life to process this in a different way, in whatever way makes sense for them. Releasing the expectations, even on yourself, of what this holiday season might look like in comparison to other holiday seasons. It will be different, and that's okay. If anything we've learned from last year during our first COVID Christmas, that things are okay if they're different. Allow yourself the flexibility in it being different, releasing the expectations, again, in that we give ourselves freedom. Our expectations of where we are and what we want it to be is what creates our internal suffering. If everything is as we expect it to be, we have contentment. So by releasing the expectation, we give ourselves the opportunity, at least, to be at peace with what is. The second lesson, if you will, or suggestion or offering, is to allow for your emotions. Give them space. Give space to feel them, to be in them, to, again, not expect that they're going to be different than what they are. Just allow them to be. You know, a teacher of mine said to me, people come to therapy not because they're feelings, but because they have feelings about their feelings. The guilt, the shame, the rejection, the disappointment that we have about our feelings of being sad, of being angry. We have all of these ideas about whether it should be so. And that is what creates the problem, not the feelings themselves. But if you're sad, be sad. It is sad to lose someone we love. You're angry, allow yourself the space to feel angry. That doesn't mean in any of these cases that we get to act out however we want, right? We have a personal responsibility to take care of ourselves and to respond, not react to situations. We have our actions have an impact on the people around us. And so showing up and taking care of ourselves by being with our emotions allows us to cope well. So there's several practices in the ebook and links to practices that allow us to help be with emotion, allowing us to titrate, if you will, our emotions so that we can remain in control. The capital I self, right? The capital S self, that it's not our emotions deciding or dictating our behavior, but in fact, we're making choices. That is about taking care of self. The third is setting boundaries. So I think oftentimes we talk often about boundaries as it relates to other people and their behavior, but that's not really what boundaries are about. Boundaries are about our own personal space, and what we determine is allowed in or out of that boundary. And this includes ideas, thoughts, feelings, experiences, and of course, people as well. And so if we imagine our space around us as our sacred space, what is it that you want in what is already in there that does not belong to you, that you can release outward, but also how do you want to manage that space? And it's okay to make decisions to say, I'm not engaging in that conversation, or this is what I need in order for me to be okay for the holidays. And it is okay to say, I would love to do that, but I'm only going to be able to spend 30 minutes there, or I might have to leave. and giving yourself permission to do so. Setting boundaries is what allows you to take care of yourself. And again, it's not about how other people feel about those boundaries, which is often the challenging part about setting boundaries. That's up to them to respect or not respect, but their choices are their responsibility. Your choices are yours. The fourth idea offering is to create new traditions or shift, as I talked about, in creating legacy around older traditions. So if your loved one that has passed was always the one who carved the turkey, as an example, how can you create a new tradition or a legacy around that tradition and pass it on to a younger member of your family or community that would be, well, that would feel good, that would feel nourishing, that would kind of honor the person who died, while also allowing that to move forward and to become a part of a family tradition in the lineage of your family. In this way, we remember those people who came before us and who will live on beyond us. And by remembering the other people, we also can have some solace that we may be remembered as well. At the end, we want to find our way back to love and to gratitude. And this may take some time, right? It may take some time, but as we move through each year and we find our way to cope and to take care of ourselves, and we have conversations with our loved ones that are still here, and we remember the people who we've lost, we create an opportunity to be in gratitude for our life, for the relationships that we continue to have in our lives, and for the love that we feel. There's a beautiful video that I included in the ebook of Andrew Garfield talking about the death of his mother and his grief as being all the unexpressed love that he has for her. And he hopes that the grief doesn't go away because he feels like he has so much more love. As we often do, we never feel like we have enough time. There's this idea that somehow if a person has lived to 90 or more, that somehow because they've lived a good life that we won't grieve them, but that is not true. Yes, of course, when a young person dies, we all mourn the loss not only of the life, but the life that they could have lived. But that doesn't mean that we don't still treasure and love the person that we've lost and who they have meant to us in our life, and that hole perhaps that exists now in our life because they are no longer here in the physical realm. And so how can we find our way back to gratitude, to love? So I invite you now to close your eyes if you can, or lower your gaze away from the screen and come into a place of meditation with me for a few moments of quiet reflection and stillness within. Turning your attention inward. Noticing your body, the sensations and feelings, coming into a stance that is comfortable yet a strong back supporting you, a soft belly in front, releasing your jaw down, bringing your tongue down, release your jaw, your throat, your belly. Allow your body to sink a little deeper giving over a bit more of your body weight and the burdens that you may be carrying over to the chair in which you're sitting. If you're called to do so, you can put left hand to chest, to heart space, your deep heart beneath your sternum, center part in your chest, and the right hand on belly. Both hands on heart is also okay. Both hands in your lap is okay. Whatever feels okay for you right now. And just start to notice the rise and the fall of your breath. The rise of your chest with each inhale and the release with each exhale. The subtle movements of your body. Your breath is your friend, a friend that is with you at any moment to provide you with comfort, to soothe, to reduce your heart rate, to bring you back into a place of calm and peace. As you need to feel a little calmer, allow your exhale to be a little bit longer, deeper, softer. Start to feel into where your grief lives. The sadness, the grief. For most people, it's in our chest, in our heart space, our broken hearts. If your hands are on your chest, feeling underneath your hand to the pain or the tightness that may be present underneath. Imagine it like a bowl or a cauldron holding your grief. As you can, if you can, allow yourself to see the cauldron, see the grief, but not allowing the grief to overtake you. Like your breath, you simply notice it. Keeping a healthy witness stance. The seat of our heart, where our grief lives, but also where love, gratitude, compassion. Grief being the demanding sibling of death. She asks of us to see it, to feel her, to take her hand and walk the journey towards a deeper sense of love, gratitude, of compassion, both for self and others around us, recognizing the preciousness of our life, of the relationships we hold most dear to us. Seeing grief, befriending her, allowing her to comfort as we sit with our sadness, with our anger, and with our joy. the happiness of the memories that we carry, the love that we feel, and all the unexpressed love that we still have to share with our loved one. Releasing this now and taking a few conscious breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth slowly, like you're blowing out a straw. One more time, inhaling through your nose deeply, out through your mouth like blowing out a straw. Allowing yourself to feel the compassion and love for both self and the other people around you. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be at peace. Thank you so much for being a part of this grief during the holidays. I hope between this short webinar and the ebook and all of the practices held within it that you find support and tools that can support you during the holidays and beyond. Many blessings to you.